Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to 20 minutes of reading with me, Lauren, from Amatis Learning Centre in Northcliffe, Bavaria, Johannesburg, South Africa. Welcome back. Can you believe we're on chapter 10, page 140 something? I'm so impressed with us and I'm loving the story and I'm not too sure that I thought I would love it. So I hope you're liking it too. I hope your first day of school, if you went back today, was amazing. If you're going back next week, fantastic. You've got another 7 days to listen to another 7 more chapters. So you can tell your teachers you've almost finished Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Isn't that fantastic? So some of you join me live from 6:30. Others catch on later. And others of you listen to me later on in the week. And that's fantastic. Just kind of keep them in order because I'm reading chapter to chapter. But before we start, I promised to talk to you a little bit about Groovy Greeks because I found this fantastic book. It's from a series called Horrible Histories, and it's a fun way to learn about history. So I wanted to talk to you about 2 quick things. The first one is I found out that the oracle that they speak about in the book was true, that the Greeks in ancient times really did consult oracles. It says there, think like a Greek, and consulting the oracle. So I thought I would read you a little bit about that, because when you read fiction stories, and remember fiction is not true or a made-up story, and non-fiction is fact, so that's your textbooks. It could be, I'm thinking of authors that I enjoy, like Bill Bryson writes about non-fiction. He writes it in a flowy fiction kind of way, but he writes about truth. But something like non-fiction, like this Percy Jackson, the author is using information from the real world, using the information from truth, from, you could call it fact, or from what's really going on, to inspire his story and to give detail and depth to his story. So it's not just all made up, there's some elements of truth, and many, many authors do this. Especially Percy Jackson, which is fantastic because it means that we can learn a little bit about the world, the future, the present, and a lot about the past by reading fun stories. So I really want to promote that you read as much as you can. So the oracle, which is fascinating, is just like we read in the last chapter when Percy has to go up to the oracle to find out his fates. So this is what the Greeks believed. And in this lovely book, it says, think like a Greek. The Greeks were very superstitious people. So superstitions are things like when people say, touch wood, that won't happen to me, or don't walk under a ladder, or break a mirror because you'll get 7 years bad luck. Those are superstitions. And there's no proof, there's no scientific evidence that that is the case, but it's a belief that you have. So some people might say they've always got to step with their left foot when they leave their house in the morning. And those things are almost like lucky charms. So the Greeks were very superstitious people. They believed in horoscopes and ghosts and the gods deciding your fate. They believed that the gods spoke through oracles and you could learn about the future if you understood the oracle. So in the Percy Jackson book, there was a kind of a mummy. He talked about a mummy, but not wrapped up in cloth, that it was sort of a putrefied body, and then the oracle spoke through that. And this is what we're saying. So I'm assuming then that the author, Rick, went across to his research files and books, and he went online, and he found out a bit about the Greeks before he started writing. And he wove that information that he found, that he researched, into his story. So when you're writing creative writing at school for exams, in class, how can you use what you already know about the world, and how can you weave that into stories? So it's almost like the author has taken what he knows about Greek mythology and he's created a story around it. So that's something that you could do. So if you have to write about your favorite holiday, can you think about your favorite holiday and then weave a story around it? So it's not necessarily true. You make it more exciting. Teachers like to read exciting stories. And sometimes, well, I think that stories can be much more exciting than real life. And then sometimes we feel bad that our life isn't so exciting. But that's because stories are always made to be bigger. So that's what Rick Riordan has done. He has looked at the Greeks and he's written a story through the information. So I'm going to read a little bit more. It says, awesome oracles. The Greeks like to know what would happen in the future. Don't you sometimes like to know that? What's my teacher going to be like tomorrow? What's the test going to have in it? What's going to happen next year? We kind of worry about that a bit. Well, the Greeks also worried about that, and they came up with this oracle, this idea that you could ask somebody and they would tell you. Imagine if you could know what's happening tomorrow, you could prepare better. They didn't have crystal balls or people reading your palm. Have you ever known about that? Have you heard about palm reading and fortune tellers? Instead, they had oracles. You went to a holy place, made a sacrifice, and asked a god to tell you what the future held. That sounds like the story, Percy Jackson, we read about that. Of course, the god didn't speak to a human directly. There were a couple of ways of getting your message. At Delphi, the god Apollo spoke through his oracle, a priestess. She was a bit like a medium in a sense today. She went into a trance and spoke in a strange language. The priests then took this baffling information and told the visitor what it meant. So in ancient Greek ancient Greece, there were interpreters that would interpret what the oracle said. I wonder if they made up stories. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about that because we had exposure to that in the book. And isn't it amazing that it is true? Well, it's true for the Greeks in their time. So stories really are wonderful. So I want to get started on chapter 10 as quickly as possible because we definitely are going over our 20 minutes of reading because the chapters seem to be getting longer. So rather than rambling on and on, I want to start with chapter 10 straight away. Can I say straight away? I've been chatting anyway. But I really do hope that you have had a fantastic first day if you're back at school and that you have a wonderful sleep tonight. But before that, maybe I can give you a bedtime story. So, chapter 10. I run a perfectly comfortable, I hope you're getting comfortable as well. The title is, I run a perfectly good bus. It didn't take me long to pack. I decided to leave the Minotaur horn in my cabin, which left me only an extra change of clothes and a toothbrush to stuff in a backpack Rover had found me. The camp store loaned me $100 in mortal money and 20 gold drachmas. These coins were as big as Girl Scout cookies, can you imagine, and had images of various Greek gods stamped on one side and the Empire State Building stamped on the other. The ancient mortal drachmas had been silver, Chiron told us, but Olympians never used less than pure gold. Chiron said the coins might come in handy for non-mortal transactions, whatever that meant. Remember, mortal means human flesh and immortal means what the Greeks called the gods. They would live forever. They were immortal. They would never die. So now they're talking about mortal money, which is the American dollar, because remember the story set in America. And then the immortal money, which is these golden drachmas. I don't know why he's talking about being silver, but we'll get to that. He gave Annabeth and me each a flask of nectar and an airtight bag full of ambrosia squares to be used only in emergencies if we were seriously hurt. It was god food, Chiron reminded us. It would cure us of almost any injury, but it was lethal to mortals. Too much of it would make a half-blood very, very feverish. An overdose would burn us up, literally. So literally means, he doesn't mean like you just get hot. Like, you know, we talked about hyperbole, when you exaggerate, like the word gajillion, or, you know. But this is saying if even a half-blood took too much of the ambrosia, they would literally burst into flames and burn up. So I don't think they want to do that. Annabeth was bringing her magic Yankees cap, which she told me had been a 12th birthday present from her mom. She carried a book on famous classical architecture, written in ancient Greek, to read when she got bored. Isn't that the kind of book we all read when we're bored? A classical architecture book written in ancient Greek. And a long bronze knife hidden in her shirt sleeve. I was sure the knife would get us busted the first time we went through a metal detector. Grover wore his fake feet and his trousers to pass as human. Well, that makes sense. He wore a green Rasta-style cap because when it rained, his curly hair flattened and you could just see the tips of his horns. His bright orange backpack was full of scrap metal and apples to snack on. In his pocket was a set of reed pipes his daddy goat had carved for him, even though he only knew 2 songs, Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 12 and Hilary Duff's So Yesterday, both of which sounded pretty bad on reed pipes. We waved goodbye to the other campers, took one last look at the strawberry fields, the ocean, and the big house, then hiked up Half-Blood Hill to the tall pine tree that used to be Talia, daughter of Zeus. Chiron was waiting for us in his wheelchair. Next to him stood the surfer dude I'd seen when I was recovering in the sick room. According to Grover, the guy was the camp's head of security. He supposedly had eyes all over his body, so he could never be surprised. Ha! Just like teachers. They have eyes on the back of their head. That's how they know what's going on in class. Today, though, he was wearing a chauffeur's uniform, so I could only see extra peepers on his hands, face and neck. Peepers? Eyes? Close your peepers? Have you ever heard someone say that to you? This is Argus, Chiron told me. He will drive you into the city and, keep an eye on things. I heard footsteps behind us. Luke came running up the hill carrying a pair of basketball shoes. Hey, he panted. Glad I caught you. Annabeth blushed, the way she always did when Luke was around. Just wanted to say good luck, Luke told me. And I thought, maybe you could use these? He handed me the sneakers, which looked pretty normal. They even smelled kind of normal. Luke said, Maya! White birds' wings sprouted out of the heels, startling me so much I dropped them. The shoes flapped around on the ground until the wings folded up and disappeared. Awesome, Grover said. Luke smiled. Those served me well when I was on my quest. Gift from Dad. Of course, I don't use them much these days. His expression turned sad. I didn't know what to say. It was cool enough that Luke had come to say goodbye. I'd been afraid he might resent me for getting so much attention the last few days. But here he was giving me a magic gift. It made me blush almost as much as Annabeth. Hey man, I said, thanks. Listen, Percy. He looked uncomfortable. A lot of hopes are riding on you, so just kill some monsters for me, okay? We shook hands. Luke patted Grover's head between his horns, then gave a goodbye hug to Annabeth, who looked like she might pass out. I think Annabeth likes Luke. After Luke was gone, I told her, You're hyperventilating. I'm not. You let him capture the flag instead of you, didn't you? Oh, why do I want to go anywhere with you, Percy? She stomped down the other side of the hill, where a white SUV waited on the shoulder of the road. What does SUV stand for? Argus followed, jingling his car keys. I picked up the flying shoes and had a sudden bad feeling. I looked at Chiron. I won't be able to use these, will I? He shook his head. Luke meant well, Percy, but taking to the air, that would not be wise for you. I nodded, disappointed. But then I got an idea. Hey, Grover, you want a magic item? His eyes lit up. Me? Pretty soon, we'd laced the sneakers over his fake feet, and the world's first flying goat boy was ready for launch. Maya! He shouted. He got off the ground okay, but then fell over sideways, so his backpack dragged through the grass. The winged shoes kept bucking up and down like tiny broncos. A bronco is a bucking horse? Or a horse? Practice, Chiron called after him. You just need practice. Ah! Grover went flying sideways down the hill like a possessed lawnmower heading towards the van. Before I could follow, Chiron caught my arm. I should have trained you better, Percy, he said. If only I had more time. Hercules, Jason, they all got more training. That's okay. I just wish... I stopped myself because I was about to sound like a brat. I was wishing my dad had given me a cool magic item to help on the quest. Something as good as Luke's flying shoes or Annabeth's invisible cap. What am I thinking? Chiron cried. I can't let you get away without this. He pulled a pen from his coat pocket and handed it to me. It was an ordinary, disposable ballpoint, black ink, removable cap, possibly cost 30 cents. Gee, I said, thanks. Percy, that's a gift from your father. I'd kept it for years, not knowing you were who I was waiting for. But the prophecy is clear to me now. You are the one. I remembered the field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, when I'd vaporized Mrs. Dodds. Chiron had thrown me a pen that turned into a sword. Could this be? I took off the cap and the pen grew longer and heavier in my hand. In half a second, I had a shimmering bronze sword with a double-edged blade and leather-wrapped grip and a flat hilt riveted with gold studs. It was the first weapon that actually felt balanced in my hand. The sword has a long and tragic history that we need not go into, Chiron told me. Its name is Anaklusmos. Anaklusmos? Oh, these Greek names. Anaklusmos. Riptide, I translated, surprised the ancient Greek came so easily. Use it for emergencies, Chiron said, and only against monsters. No hero should harm mortals unless absolutely necessary. Of course, but this sword wouldn't harm them in any case. I looked at the wickedly sharp blade. What do you mean it wouldn't harm mortals? How could it not? The sword is celestial bronze. Celestial is a word that means a star from outer space, so it's bronze from, not from Earth. Forged by the Cyclopses, tempered in the heart of Mount Etna, cooled in the river of Lethe. It's deadly to monsters, to any creature from the underworld, provided they don't kill you first. But the blade will pass through mortals like an illusion. They simply are not important enough for the blade to kill. And I should warn you, as a demigod, you can be killed by other celestial or normal weapons. You are twice as vulnerable. Good to know. Now recap the pen. I touched the pen cap to the sword tip, and instantly Riptide shrank to a ballpoint pen again. I tucked it in my pocket, a little nervous, because I was famous for losing pens at school. You can't, Chiron said. Can't what? Lose the pen, he said. It is enchanted. It will always reappear in your pocket. Try it. Wouldn't that be useful for our pencils at school? We couldn't lose it. It was always there. I was wary, but I threw the pen as far as I could down the hill and watched it disappear into the grass. It may take a few moments, Chiron told me. Now, check your pockets. Sure enough, the pen was there. Okay, that's extremely cool, I admitted. But what if a mortal sees me pulling out a sword? Chiron smiled. Mist is a powerful thing, Percy. Mist? Yes. Read the Iliad. It's full of references to the stuff. Whenever divine or monstrous elements mix with the mortal world, they generate mist, which obscures the vision of humans. You will see things just as they are, being a half-blood, but humans will interpret things quite differently. Remarkable, really, the lengths to which humans will go to fit things into their vision of reality. I put Riptide back in my pocket. For the first time, the quest felt real. I was actually leaving Half-Blood Hill. I was heading west with no adult supervision, no backup plan, not even a cell phone. Chiron said cell phones were traceable by monsters. If we used one, it would be worse than sending up a flare. I had no weapon stronger than a sword to fight off monsters and reach the land of the dead. Chiron, I said, when you say the gods are immortal, I mean, there was a time before them, right? 4 ages before them, actually. The time of the Titans was the 4th age, sometimes called the Golden Age, which is definitely a misnomer. This, the time of the Western civilization and the rule of Zeus, is the 5th age. So what was it like before the gods? Chiron pursed his lips. Even I am not old enough to remember that, child, but I know it was a time of darkness and savagery for mortals. Kronos, the lord of the Titans, called his reign the Golden Age because men lived innocent and free of all knowledge. But that was mere propaganda. The Titan King cared nothing for your kind except as appetizers or a source of cheap entertainment. He used to eat mortals. That's what an appetizer is. It's a little bit of food before you have your main course. It was only in the early reign of Lord Zeus, when Prometheus, the good Titan, brought fire to mankind, that your species began to progress. And even then, Prometheus was branded a radical thinker. Zeus punished him severely, as you may recall. Of course, eventually the gods warmed to humans, and Western civilization was born. But the gods can't die now, right? I mean, as long as Western civilization is alive, they're alive. So, even if I failed, nothing could happen so bad it would mess up everything, right? Chiron gave me a melancholy smile. No one knows how long the age of the West will last, Percy. The gods are immortal, yes, but then so were the Titans. They still exist, locked away in their various prisons, forced to endure endless pain and punishment, reduced in power but still very much alive. May the fates forbid that the gods should ever suffer such a doom, or that we should ever return to the darkness and chaos of the past. All we can do, child, is follow our destiny. Our destiny? Assuming we know what that is. Relax, Chiron told me. Keep a clear head, and remember, you may be about to prevent the biggest war in human history. Relax, I said. I'm very relaxed. When I got to the bottom of the hill, I looked back. Under the pine tree that used to be Talia, daughter of Zeus, Chiron was now standing in full horseman form, holding his bow high in salute. Just your typical summer camp send-off by your typical centaur. Not typical at all, right? Argus drove us out of the countryside into western Long Island. It felt weird to be on a highway again, Annabeth and Grover sitting next to me as if we were normal carpoolers. After 2 weeks at Half-Blood Hill, the real world seemed like a fantasy. I found myself staring at even McDonald's, every kid in the back of his parents' car, even billboard and shopping malls. So far so good, I told Annabeth. 10 miles and not a single monster. She gave me an irritated look. That's bad luck to talk that way, seaweed brain. Remind me again, why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. She folded her cap of invisibility. Look, we're just not supposed to get along, okay? Our parents are rivals. Why? She sighed. How many reasons do you want? One time my mom caught Poseidon with his girlfriend in Athena's temple, which is hugely disrespectful. Another time, Athena and Poseidon repeated to be the patron god for the city of Athens. Your dad created some stupid saltwater spring for his gift. My mom created the olive tree. The people saw that her gift was better, so they named the city after her. They must really like olives. Oh, forget it. Now, if she'd invented pizza, that I could understand. I said, forget it. Annabeth is really frustrated with Percy. And Percy's making all these funny jokes. He's kind of a fun guy. In the front seat, Argus smiled. He didn't say anything, but one blue eye on the back of his neck winked at me. The back of his neck winked. Traffic slowed us down in Queens. By the time we got into Manhattan, it was sunset and starting to rain. Argus dropped us at the Greyhound station on the Upper East Side, not far from my mom and Gabe's apartment. Taped to a mailbox was a soggy flyer with my picture on it. Have you seen this boy? Remember the newspaper article where they said a boy and his mom had been missing and they found the car with the roof pulled off? I ripped it down before Annabeth and Grover could notice. Argus unloaded our bags, made sure we got our bus ticket, then drove away, the eye on the back of his hand opening to watch us as he pulled out of the parking lot. Wouldn't that be weird if someone's eye was there? I thought about how close I was to my old apartment. On a normal day, my mom would be home from the candy store by now. Smelly Gabe was probably there right now, playing poker, not even missing her. Grover shouldered his backpack. He gazed down the street in the direction I was looking. You want to know why she married him, Percy? I stared at him. Were you reading my mind or something? Just your emotions, he shrugged. Guess I forgot to tell you, satyrs can do that. We were thinking about your mom and your stepdad, right? I nodded, wondering what else Grover might have forgotten to tell me. Your mom married Gabe for you, Grover told me. You call him Smelly, but you've got no idea. The guy has this aura. Yuck. I can smell him from here. I can smell traces of him on you, and you haven't been near him for a fortnight. A fortnight means 2 weeks. There's a new word. And it's a game that you play. I haven't played it. I wonder if it's got to do with 2 weeks. Thanks, I said. Where's the nearest shower? You should be grateful, Percy. Your stepfather smells so repulsively human, he could mask the presence of any demigod. As soon as I took a whiff inside his Camaro, I knew. Gabe has been covering your scent for years. If you hadn't lived with him every summer, you probably would have been found by monsters a long time ago. Your mom stayed with him to protect you. She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to put up with that guy. If that makes you feel any better? I didn't, but I forced myself not to show it. I'll see her again, I thought. She isn't gone. I wondered if Grover could still read my emotions, mixed up as they were. I was glad he and Annabeth were with me, but I felt guilty that I hadn't been straight with them. I hadn't told them the real reason I'd said yes to this crazy quest. The truth was, I didn't care about retrieving Zeus's lightning bolt, or saving the world, or even helping my father out of trouble. The more I thought about it, I resented Poseidon for never visiting me, never helping my mum, never even sending a lousy child support check. He'd only claimed me because he needed a job done. All I cared about was my mum. Hades had taken her unfairly, and Hades was going to give her back. You will be betrayed by one who calls you a friend, the oracle whispered in my mind. You will fail to save what matters most in the end. Shut up, I told that voice inside my head. Did you know that when you have those voices in your head that are telling you, oh, this is scary, oh, I'm afraid, that you can actually talk to that voice and say, whoa, hold on, no, you're not helping me out here, shush. So Percy's doing that to that voice, that oracle voice in his head, and going, no, I refuse to listen to you. And you can do that too. The rain kept coming down. We got restless waiting for the bus and decided to play some hacky sack with one of Grover's apples. Annabeth was unbelievable. She could bounce the apple off her knee, her elbow, her shoulder, whatever. I wasn't too bad myself. The game ended when I tossed the apple toward Grover and it got too close to my mouth, to his mouth. In one mega goat bite, our hacky sack disappeared, core, stem, and all. Grover blushed. He tried to apologize, but Annabeth and I were too busy cracking up. Finally, the bus came. As we stood in line to board, Grover started looking around, sniffing the air like he smelt his favorite school cafeteria delicacy, enchiladas. "What is it?" I asked. "I don't know," he said tensely. "Maybe it's nothing." But I could tell it wasn't nothing. I started looking over my shoulder too. I was relieved when we finally got on board and found seats together in the back of the bus. We stowed our backpacks. Annabeth kept slapping her Yankee cap nervously against her thigh. As the last passengers got on, Annabeth clamped her hand onto my knee. "Percy!" An old lady had just boarded the bus. She wore a crumpled velvet dress, lace gloves, and a shapeless orange knit hat that shadowed her face, and she carried a big paisley purse. When she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Dodds, older, more withered, but definitely the same evil face. I scrunched down in my seat. Behind her came two more old ladies, one in a green hat, one in a purple hat. Otherwise, they looked exactly like Mrs. Dodds. Same gnarled hands, paisley handbags, wrinkled velvet dresses, triplet demon grandmothers. They sat in the front row right behind the driver. The two on the aisle crossed their legs over the walkway, making an X. It was casual enough, but it sent a clear message: nobody leaves. The bus pulled out of the station and we headed through the slick streets of Manhattan. "She didn't stay dead long," I said, trying to keep my voice from quivering. "I thought you said they could be dispelled for a lifetime." "I said if you're lucky," Annabelle said. "You're obviously not." "All three of them," Grover whispered. Die immortalis?" "It's okay," Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. "The Furies, the three worst monsters from the underworld. No problem, we'll just slip out the windows." "They don't open," Grover moaned. "A back exit," she suggested. There wasn't one. Even if there had been, it wouldn't have helped. By that time, we were on 9th Avenue, heading for the Lincoln Tunnel. "They won't attack us with witnesses around," I said, "will they?" "Mortals don't have good eyes," Annabeth reminded me. "Their brains can only process what they see through the mist. They'll see three old ladies killing us, won't they?" She thought about it. "Hard to say, but we can't count on mortals for help. Maybe an emergency exit in the roof." We hit the Lincoln Tunnel and the bus went dark, except for the running lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the rain. Mrs. Dodds got up. In a flat voice, as if she'd rehearsed it, she announced to the whole bus, "I need to use the restroom." "So do I," the second sister. "So do I," said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. "I've got it," Annabeth said. "Percy, take my hat." "What?" "You're the one they want. Turn invisible and go up the aisle. Let them pass you. Maybe you get to the front and get away." "But you guys?" "There's an outside chance they may not notice us," Annabeth said. "You're a son of one of the big three. Your smell might be overpowering." "I can't just leave you." "Don't worry about us," Grover said. "Go." My hands trembled. I felt like a coward, but I took the Yankees cap and put it on. When I looked down, my body wasn't there anymore. I started creeping up the aisle. I managed to get up 10 rows, then ducked into an empty seat just as the Furies walked past. How many times have you wanted to be invisible? That would be a cool thing, a cool trick. Mrs. Dodds stopped, sniffing, and looked straight at me. My heart was pounding. Apparently she didn't see anything. She and her sisters kept going. I was free. I made it to the front of the bus. We were almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now. I was about to press the emergency stop button when I heard hideous wailing from the back row. The old ladies were not old ladies anymore. Their faces were still the same. I guess those couldn't be any uglier, but their bodies had shriveled into leathery brown hag bodies with bat wings and hands and feet like gargoyle claws. Their handbags had turned into fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips, hissing, "Where is he? Where?" The other people on the bus were screaming, cowering in their seats. They saw something all right. "He's not here," Annabeth yelled. "He's gone." The Furies raised their whips. Annabeth drew her bronze knife. Grover grabbed a tin can from his snack bag and prepared to throw it. What I did next was so impulsive and dangerous, I should have been named ADHD Poster Child of the Year. The bus driver was distracted, trying to see what was going on in his rearview mirror. Still invisible, I grabbed the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as they were thrown to the right, and I heard what I hoped was the sound of 3 Furies smashing against the windows. "Hey!" the driver yelled. "Hey! Whoa!" He wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal, throwing sparks a mile behind us. We careened out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back into the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus. Cars ploughed aside like bowling pins. Somehow the driver found an exit. We shot off the highway, through 6 traffic lights, and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads where you can't believe there's so much nothing right across the river from New York. There were woods to our left, the Hudson River to our right, and the driver seemed to be veering straight towards the river. Another great idea. I hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full circle on the wet tar, and crashed into trees. The emergency lights came on. The door flew open. The bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampeded after him. I stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. The Furies regained their balance. They lashed their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled in ancient Greek, telling them to back off. Grover threw tin cans. I looked at the open doorway. I was free to go, but I couldn't leave my friends. I took off the invisible cap. "Hey!" The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at me, and the exit suddenly sounded like an excellent idea. Mrs. Dodds stalked up the aisle, just as she used to do in class, about to deliver my F maths test. Every time she flicked her whip, red flames danced along the barbed leather. Her 2 ugly sisters hopped on top of the seats on either side of her and crawled towards me like huge, nasty lizards. "Perseus Jackson," Mrs. Dodds said, in an accent that was definitely from somewhere further south than Georgia, "you have offended the gods. You shall die." "I liked you better as a maths teacher," I told her. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies cautiously, looking for an opening. I took the ballpoint pen out of my pocket and uncapped it. Riptide elongated into a shimmering double-edged sword. The Furies hesitated. Mrs. Dodds had felt Riptide's blade before. She obviously didn't like seeing it again. "Submit now," she hissed, "and you will not suffer eternal torment." "Nice try," I told her. "Percy, look out," Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodds lashed her whip around my sword hand while the Furies on either side lunged at me. My hand felt like it was wrapped in molten lead. It would be really hot, like lava from a volcano. But I managed not to drop Riptide. I struck the Fury on the left with its hilt, sending her toppling backwards into a seat. I turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected with her neck, she screamed and it exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodds in a wrestling hold and yanked her backwards while Grover ripped the whip out of her hands. "Ow!" he yelled. "Ow! Hot! Hot!" The fury I'd hilt slammed came at me again, talons ready, but I swung riptide and she broke open like a piñata. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get Annabeth off her back. She kicked, clawed, hissed and bit, but Annabeth held on while Grover got Mrs. Dodds' legs tied up in her own whip. Finally, they both shoved her backwards into the aisle. Mrs. Dodds tried to get up, but she didn't have room to flap her bat wings, so she kept falling down. "Zeus will destroy you," she promised. "Hades will have your soul." "Brachus meus visimini," I yelled. More Greek? It's Greek to me. I wasn't sure where Latin. I wasn't sure where the Latin came from. I think it means eat my pants. Thunder shook the bus. The hair rose on the back of my neck. "Get out!" Annabeth yelled at me. "Now!" I didn't need any encouragement. We rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering around in a daze, arguing with the driver, or running around in circles yelling, "We're going to die! We're going to die!" A Hawaiian-shirted tourist with a camera snapped my photograph before I could recap my sword. "Our bags," Grover realized. "We left our..." Boom! The windows of the bus exploded as the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater in the roof, but an angry wail from inside told me Mrs. Dodds was not yet dead. "Run," Annabeth said. "She's calling for reinforcements. We have to get out of here." We plunged into the woods as the rain poured down. The bus in flames behind us. Nothing but darkness ahead. Whoa. We've come to the end of chapter 10. Wow, that was epic. So, if you are younger than 10 and you're reading this with me, what are you going to do if it feels a little scary? I think you're going to chat to your mom about it. I think you're going to remember it's a story. And I think you're going to remember you have the control, not the story, not anything that's scaring you, but you. You get to decide what this is all about. But that was a really epic chapter. I really enjoyed it. And now I cannot wait, because now they've plunged into the wood and the rain is coming down and the bus has just exploded and Mrs. Dodds is not yet dead. So I'm thinking she's going to chase them. And I wonder what Percy's going to be able to do, because Grover just throws tins. I mean, Annabeth was kind of useful, so that was a good thing. So you have, if you've stuck with me, you have read 10 chapters out of the 22, I think it is. We're almost halfway. You've read 167 pages with me. Well done. That is amazing. We are this far in the book. Look how far we've got. Have you ever done that before? If you haven't, well done. Brilliant. And I think the story is getting better. So, finishing the chapter marks the end of 20 minutes of reading for tonight. It's a Tuesday night. I know that you're all set and snuggled up and almost ready for bed. Make sure you brush your teeth. Tomorrow night we're reading chapter 11, which is called We Visit the Garden Gnome Emporium. There you go. We'll see what that's about tomorrow night. So all that's left to say is that if you enjoyed reading with me, Lauren, please click like and share so that other lucky kids just like you can read along too. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night.